It is good day to be not dead.
2 weeks. This game died in 2 weeks. It expired faster than a gallon of milk. Is this the fastest a multiplayer game has died? I want to say there's one that didn't even make it 1 week, but this is easily like the most pathetic on the AAA scale. But, oh dear. The sad thing is, it's only ever going to be known for the fact that it launched like a fish on dry land.
Magikarp, Magikarp, Magikarp.
The joke is it did nothing but flop. Because, well, no one actually played the game. There's nothing for most people to remember but the pathetic state of its launch and death. Ugh. You know, just to put that absolute failure into perspective, Splatoon 1 on the original Wii U, a console that barely pushed 11 million units in its lifespan, that game was able to sell almost 5 million copies. Back 4 Blood, a game that is no longer getting updates, is still online, you can still play it, it still has crossplay enabled, and on Steam alone, it peaks daily at about 2,000 players. Dragon Ball The Breakers, a game that its own player base loves to say is dead every time Bandai Namco does anything with Dragon Ball involved, still has 550 players on Steam alone, every day. Concord has, by every metric, failed. The only thing it didn't truly fail on is that some of the people who did play it, they said it was alright, like that it wasn't a terrible game to play. But honestly, this game was doomed to die. I'm surprised it died this quickly. I thought I was being big-brained by not getting it and waiting for it to inevitably go free to play, because that did seem inevitable to me. But no, I will never get to experience Concord. I guess that makes me like most of the planet. But yeah, this game was always going to do its best impersonation of a Magikarp. Because, well, first of all, the economy's not great when it came out. It's not the only game having to deal with that, obviously, but it means people are going to be very picky about what games they play. Secondly, it's a live service game, which, putting aside for the fact that there's a lot of people, at least online, who are getting sick of that, it's a very, very crowded type of game, because people do not have infinite time and infinite money. You know, think about it like this. The people who are still playing Halo Infinite, how many of them are going to drop it for Concord? How many people still playing Helldivers 2 are going to drop it for Concord? How many people still playing Fortnite are going to drop it? How many people still playing Overwatch 2? Name any live service, even one that is perceived as dying, and ask, how many people from that are they going to get from Concord? Probably not many. So, it's really having to deal with a dwindling pool of fresh players who have the time, resources, and interest in that kind of thing. And, as if all that isn't enough, it's also a hero shooter. The subgenre of the class-based shooter that's been dying for a few years. At least culturally, it's been dying for a few years. And I think that's because, even more so than live services, people are getting really tired of hero shooters. You know, the figure out how your 1 in 20 characters fits into the rock, paper, scissors mechanic, where the actual shooting and gunplay feels secondary to ability usage and map layout. And it tends to get very stale after a while, because they don't actually update characters that much with options, they just add new heroes to it. It's not like Team Fortress 2, where you have the 9 characters, and then each of them gets side grades that you can swap your items out for. That would probably get people's attention. And you would think as an outsider looking in that it would be easier to monetize, but what do I know? Well, actually, based on Concord, I might actually know more than the people who greenlit this. But for those 3 reasons alone, I don't think this game was ever going to do gangbusters. But then, we have the next layer, which is this game looks ugly. First, there's the art style. There is none. This film, I just called it a film. I don't have a script for this. I'm just going off bullet points. This game spent $200 million to look like a film. This kind of quote-unquote art style, we'll call it, this aesthetic, is what the MCU has to do, in their eyes, to bring normies into it. And they're not wrong. I love my family to death. I cannot get them to watch anything from Studio Ghibli with me on DVD. I have Castle in the Sky. They are not interested. They will watch any live-action Disney schlock they put out, and they will watch it on repeat on any streaming service if they have it. They have zero interest in Castle in the Sky. They have zero interest in basically anything DreamWorks puts out that isn't Shrek. If they did not grow up on the animation, they are not interested in it, and that is a lot of the MCU's audience. So, I want you to imagine spending the kind of money that, like, old Disney could use to make 2 Marvel Cinematic Universe films, to make your imitation of what Hollywood has to do to bring in a normal audience. How does that old expression go again? It takes a lot of money to look this fake. But on top of the weird decision to go for photorealism MCU when you're in one of the few mediums that openly accepts and is profitable in different art styles, then there's what everybody already has addressed. The fact these character designs are ugly, the DEI elements as it's called. And look, you've probably heard that everywhere. I don't have too much to add that you haven't heard to death, so I'll spare you that. But there is one angle of that I think I would like to bring up here. Am I the only one who's noticed that when a corporation says diversity in terms of a product or art or whatever, that it's almost always used in the same reason of subversion? Like, replace subverting the audience expectations, replace that with diversion from the status quo, and notice how often they would lead to the same result either way. So, like, just to give you an example, Emari, I believe, sorry if I mispronounced that name, I don't know how to. Why is it that she is the tank character? Well, typically, thanks to TF2, you expect the tank character to be a bulking man. So, we're going to diversify from that and make it a bulking woman. Never mind the fact Overwatch did that already, but, you know, diversity always has to ignore history so they can be the first to do it. Now, let's replace that with, like, the 2018 subverting expectations answer. Why is it that the tank is a bulking woman? Well, normally it's a bulking man, so we decided to subvert expectations. It's often just the same shallow justification for what is often deliberately unpopular decision-making. Anyway, that's all I'll say on that angle. Regardless of why these characters ended up very unappealing to look at, these characters do not have particularly strong designs. Plenty of videos go over how they have bad designs, but why does that matter? Well, it's true. Sex appeal or a good art style, whichever angle you're approaching when you say these character designs are ugly, neither of them can truly save a game forever, but they can at least turn some heads. So, keep in mind that when money is tight for a lot of people to decide what they're going to buy, when it's a business model and a game genre people are getting tired of, it doesn't have a particularly good art style, and its characters are just not appealing to look at, you are really banking on this gameplay to blow people away. And go figure, it didn't. Because the people who designed everything I just complained about, that everybody's been complaining about since it was revealed, they worked on the gameplay too. Now, to be clear, the gameplay to Concord was not poorly received. In fact, most people who played it said that it was at least kind of fun, like in the virtue of that there's nothing mechanically broken about it. Though it might also be because the player base was so small and the game died so quickly that there was just never a chance to discover the broken options. But that comes down to 2 crucial decisions they made that was always going to hurt this game, even if it didn't have these other problems. One is that, from my understanding, every game mode was a one-life mode. You know, you die, you're out of the round. So, it's incredibly punishing for new players or those who don't understand how to optimally...
Step forward now and fulfill your Step forward now and fulfill your
Or those who don't understand how to optimally use their character, which then makes it very unforgiving that not only can there only be one of each character on each team, but you're then locked out of any character your team, not you, but your team used. So every round you have to pick someone new. It makes it very difficult to actually get good at playing a character. And for a game where the rock, paper, scissors mechanic is pretty crucial, it can be hard to tell the difference between when a character just hard counters yours and when you made a gameplay mistake. So, even putting aside any of its other decisions it made, this is a game at its core where at launch, it is very punishing for new players and it's very difficult to leave the skill level of a new player. So, yeah, on just about every level I can think of, Concord was doomed to fail. I don't even think the phrase perfect storm really summarizes what a mistake everything about this was. But, I don't know how Sony's gonna ever live this down. Like, it's ultimately not my business as the consumer to know what the business side of this will be, but Sony's investors are stupid if they don't ever bring this up when Sony announces a new multiplayer game they're focusing on. Because while they can happily point to what Fortnite or Call of Duty or Call of Duty Warzone or any of these massive multiplayer games bring in, Concord, not just at Sony, but really for any company, should be an immediate investor concern of what can happen when you chase trends. Because this game took 8 years to make. And while there is nothing inherently wrong with the game being dated in terms of play, it really did feel 8 years behind the ball. Because when you're trend chasing, you can't afford to feel like an old game. But it took 8 years for them to make a game that was deemed too mediocre to even try for free during the beta period, let alone drop $40 on. I guess at the end of the day, though, the only thing left to say is Team Fortress 2 outlives another one. For Sony, it was the death of their biggest franchise. For everyone else, it was Tuesday.
I am alive! He's nice. Yes, this is stupid.